Well, hello guys, ¿qué pasa? Antonio Serrano here, and today I have a new brand video for you. A brand new, I have no idea. Okay, I have my phone here with some notes, and today we are going to talk about something that drives me crazy, and it is organization of tricks and routines inside of shows. Something that bothers me a lot and that I care a lot about is being able to organize all of the tricks that I know, all of the tricks that I have access to in books, in lectures, and all that stuff, all of the ideas that I have created, and being able to take all of those things and say, okay, this is a show. This is a show, and how many shows am I going to need throughout my life, throughout my magical career, and what tricks I need to perform and what tricks I don't need to perform. What tricks is nice to learn, maybe even to practice. There are some tricks, like for example the caps and balls, that I think that I'm never going to perform. Never say never, because I am more of a chop cup performer, and I talk about that in another video where I talk about my top 5 chop cup routines of all times. So from my point of view, I think that learning routines is great, but it's very important to have shows. A lot of magicians have like a lot of routines, like I have this many stage routines, this many parlor routines, this many close-up routines, but they don't have acts, they don't have shows. And for me, it's extremely important to put together something that is cohesive, that has callbacks, that something that I say in one routine is important in another routine, because maybe this doesn't happen where you live, but where I live, in the south of Spain, we have like kind of a cliche that we are very funny naturally, and that we are very talented and very performative people, the way we talk, the way we move our hands, basically like Italians, right? Like we are very outgoing people, and that we can perform on a stage even without rehearsing, because we are very funny and very witty without even intended to, right? So something that I try to avoid every time that I perform is people telling me, oh my god, you are so funny, this is something that you are born with, this is something that you has born with. And I am like, no. When I was born, I don't remember being born with a joke book or something like that. This is something that I work a lot, right? I work a lot to accomplish this. So what I do to avoid that kind of cliche that, yeah, you just have like a pack of cards and a couple of silks inside of your case, and you are very funny, you are very witty, and it's all because you are that way. I don't want that, right? It's true that maybe you have some innate talent, some innate gifts that makes performing easier for you, but I want people to really say, oh my god, this guy has worked a lot for that show. So I always try to make the tricks flow one after the other. Things that I say in one routine are important in another routine, some kind of a storyline if it is possible in the show. And how do I organize these shows? Very easy. I have 5 shows. I have 5 stage or cabaret shows for family audiences, with very minimal tweaks in some routines or in presentation. I can change those 5 shows to be kids shows, children shows, or to be grown-up shows for adults in cabarets, comedy clubs, or things like that. So every time I create a show, I try to create a show that's very versatile, that it can play for family audiences, which is my specialty, family audiences, but with very little changes. I can perform for kids, I can perform for grown-ups. So these 5 shows, I go around them every 5 years. So I start performing show number 1, next year number 2, 3, 4, and 5. And after 5 years, when I go back to show number 1, maybe, well, maybe not always, I have some notes to that previous show. Maybe I learned a trick in a lecture and I'm like, oh my god, this version of the trick is better than the trick that I did in my show number 1, in my number 1 show. I'm gonna change it. Sometimes I change tricks completely. Like I have a rope trick, but then I see another rope trick that I think is better. I change it. Sometimes I have a trick with cards and I'm like, oh my god, I have 2 card sequences in that show. This trick I love, this trick can fit inside the narrative, I'm going to put it there. Sometimes it's quite usual that I place a routine in show number 3 because I think that is going to fit very nicely in show number 3, and after going around once the 5 shows, once going around the full circle, I realized that the routine that I place in show number 3 would work better in show number 1. So every time that I go around this circle, every 5 years, I write down in index cards. I have some of them here, I always want to have them nearby. I wrote the name of each routine in this index card. Not only the routines that I perform in all of the shows, roughly each of those 5 shows has 9 items, 9 routines. So some routines are tricks, some routines are just comedy based or things like that. So I write, it will be 45 routines, and also I write in some other business cards, some index cards, I write the routines that I would like to put in some of the shows. It's like I have these 45 routines that I have performed these past 5 years, and now I have other 10 routines that I think that are quite good and I would like to place in some of the shows. So you start moving pieces, like, oh, this trick requires scissors, a deck of cards, and a marker. Is there any show where I have introduced all of those items so it makes sense? Okay, this trick is about an impossible location. Which show doesn't have an impossible location? Because if I already have an impossible location in one of the shows, I don't want to perform another impossible location. So that's all of the thoughts that I create. I am not a close-up worker. I am not a close-up worker, but seldom I am booked to perform close-up magic, and I feel very scared every time that I have to do a close-up gig because it's not something that I do that often compared to stage shows, cabaret shows. So what I normally do is every time that I do a family show, in a hotel, in a theme park, in a private event or something like that, I always carry inside of my case a couple of close-up tricks. And it's very important that these 2 close-up tricks are tricks that I know how to do, I am confident performing them, but they are not polished. I'm not going to perform close-up magic doing things that I have been performing since I was 13. I want to try out routines that are a little bit green, right? So that's my technique. I have these 5 shows, I go around them, and then I have basically like a small case full of close-up magic, and I am also quite frugal with my close-up magic. If one item or something like that goes in, another one has to go out. I hate having tricks that I am not performing. I hate that, like, no, I need this, sometimes I'm going to be performing this. No, you have to be real, right? You have to be real, and you know that you are not performing that anytime soon. So I hate having things that I know that I'm not going to perform, okay? More things that I would like to tell you. Oh, this is very interesting. Every year, every time that I go for full circle, I establish a goal, only one goal, and I focus 100% on that goal. For example, the first time when I started with this cycle, the main goal was to have a show with a script and stick to that script, because for years what I did was putting inside of my case 5 or 6 tricks and perform them in any order I wanted. Sometimes I changed the pattern, sometimes I changed the presentation, sometimes with the pack of cards I did a trick and sometimes I did another trick. I also had Rocky Raccoon in the case, and sometimes I used Rocky Raccoon for a prediction and sometimes I didn't. I was like, oh my god, I'm very tired, I don't want to do the trick. I'm just going to show Rocky, do some jokes, and I'm out of here. So my first goal, the first time I started with this 5 shows thing, was I need to write a script, I need to establish an order of tricks, and I need to stick to it. And I accomplished that, so that was great. The second year, for example, the theme was to create callbacks and create links. I have to say things in certain tricks that are going to be important in another tricks. I want people to see the show and say, this is a show. This is not a guy that is funny with some tricks in his pockets, improvising or something like that. I really wanted people to say, this is a worked act, right? And let me tell you something. This thing that I'm talking about, having a polished act, has a lot of benefits, and I'm going to talk about that. The next year, my goal was to fit as much magic as possible. Because I am a very funny performer, I always have the comedy on top. I'm not doing something if it is not funny. But once I have accomplished that, now I want to be funny and fit as much magic as possible. So year number 3, when I was doing this thing, year number 3, I start to fit everything as possible. So if I am going to perform a card sequence, I have to do a magic trick when I'm simply pulling out the cards. And I did Henry Evans' diminishing case, right? That's part of one of his routines. I think it's tribute to Baron or something like that. I'm not sure. So a diminishing case. So I am feeling that magic in there. I have a routine where a signed bill gets inside of a balloon, which is from Mark Genest, balloon. And when I pull out the marker for the spectator to sign the bill, I change the miniature size marker for a jumbo size marker, which is a Peter Egging trick called Sharpie or something like that, I'm not sure. So my goal for year number 3 was to fit as much magic as possible, like all the time magic. My goal for year number 4 was to customize everything. So I bought myself a suit, I bought some fabric to match my square pocket and my bag and the cloth that I put on top of my table. So every year I have a goal, right? And I try to accomplish that goal at the same time that I am performing 5 different shows and making tricks. I have a document, a Word document for each show. And you don't know the amounts of time that I've been walking down the street, no influence at all, and suddenly Mike Caveney says that it's like a brick wall. Like a brick wall goes to you and it's like bang, and you are like, oh my god, how on earth? Where was this idea? I've been performing this show like 2 or 3 times, and I have been thinking about this show for 10 or 15 years, and now suddenly I'm working here and this idea occurred to me. I write it on my phone, then I go to my house, I sit down on the computer, and then I go to the Word document for show number 1 or show number 2, and I have a section of notes at the bottom of the show. And I say, we can do this trick with this change. We can do this with that bit. And I write that. So when I have to go back to that show some years later, I take a look at the note and say, okay, I think this is good. I'm not going to listen to this note, but I write everything. I write everything because I don't know what the future Antonio is going to think. So every idea that I have, I write it. Even if they are not, even if you can't use these ideas together, right? For example, the trick that I just talked to you, balloon, the sign bill inside of the balloon, I have 3 different ideas to frame that trick, right? You can pop the balloon and have the balloon fall into the floor. I also have an idea to pop the balloon inside of a bowl so the bill doesn't fall into the ground. And I also have another handling using Jay Sankey's paperclip switch, right? Which is another idea too, and having the bill with the clip hanging from a piece of string, so that way you avoid having the bill on the floor. I have these 3 different ways. They are not compatible. You only have to do one. You can only choose one of them. But I wrote all of them in the Word document. And when I have to do that show in the future Antonio is going to decide which one of them he wants to try, or maybe he wants to try all of them for some shows and then decide which one is the best in terms of practicality, response, effect, and all that stuff. Okay? Very good. As I told you, if I find a better routine, I have to leave one go. The good thing about this is that if, for example, I have in one of my shows a rope sequence or a turn and restore, whatever, in my show currently, it's show number 3, I think, I have a turn and restore napkin, which is like a sucker effect, something like that. If I find another routine that is a turn and restore whatever, and I want to put it in one of my shows, I have to decide if that is better than the thing that I am currently doing in that show. So it is great. For me, it's great to have that peace of mind of, I have a turn and restore, I have a rope routine, I have a car to impossible location, I have a bill to impossible location, I have a chop cup routine, I have a couple of silks routines. So if I see a routine that is somehow similar to those, I can learn them, I can give it a try, but I have to keep in mind that they have to compete with the other thing that I am doing. So that to me is relaxing, right? Because I have something to compare it to, right? It's not like, here you have all of the silks routines in the world, now choose one. No, it's like, here you have all of the silks routines in the world, and this is the one that you are currently doing. So now I have something to compare. It's like, okay, this one, no, I prefer mine. This one, no. This one, oh, I think this one is better. Which is the thing that happened to me with Cody Fisher or Scott Alexander. And I went, oh, yours is better, I'm going to change it. But I have something to compare it, right? Instead of comparing everything with everything, I compare everything one by one with the thing that I'm currently doing. So that for me is quite good. I talked to you about the benefits of having a tight show with callbacks, a clean image, everything is cohesive, the tables are the same, the fabric that you use is the fabric of your tablecloth and your clothing even, everything has some kind of relation and it is an act. The major benefits from this way of thinking, instead of having a lot of shows and instead of having a lot of tricks and arrange them in any order you please, depending on the show. 2 benefits. Number 1, never, since I have been doing this, never any place that I have performed in, never have they asked me to change the show. Never. Before, when I just simply grab a couple of tricks and I did them in any order, any random order, they always went like, Antonio, can you change the show? It's like, you have been performing usually in summer, right? You have been performing here for 3 weeks and you have been performing the same tricks. Can you change some tricks? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? But when you go there and you show a polished act, a polished show, no one, in my experience, no one asks you to change a thing. Why? Because they see that it is a show. Could you imagine going to see The Lion King, the musical, and going to see the musical like 3 or 4 times, and one of the times you go like, I think they need to change some songs because I've been here 4 times and I need something new. No! No one would say that. Why? Because The Lion King, the musical, is a masterpiece show, right? You cannot change a bit about that show because everything is related, everything is choreographed to work that way. So when you have a show that feels, more or less in comparison, similar to a Broadway show that everything is very tightly connected, no one is going to ask you to change something. And I can tell you, my experience, that's completely 100% true. Even more, sometimes after a year in summer, I come back to the place, to the venue that I perform regularly in summer, and the very first show that I go back, they say to me, oh my God, we are dying to see the monkey trick, which is the trick that Bill Abbott put out, Chico the mind reader. I have a routine with that. And the following year they're like, oh my God, we can't wait to see the monkey. And I'm like, no, this year I don't have the monkey. Every year I change the show. And they are like, really? And I'm like, oh my God, like 5 or 6 years ago, people were telling me to change the show every week. And now they want me to do the same show every year. Yeah, that's what happens when you work on something and you make it great. That's basically what happens. More positive things. I don't get tired of performing. Every year when I was performing random tricks in any order, I looked at the watch and was like, oh my god, only 20 minutes? I need to go 4 minutes more on top of these 20 minutes. Oh my god, I'm so tired. I got extremely tired performing because I have nothing. I simply had a bunch of tricks. And this is something that being a teacher is quite similar to that. When you are in a classroom with a lot of students and you have nothing in mind to do, like you don't know if you are going to do a test, or you are going to read, or you are going to do some activities, when you have no plan of what you are going to do in a classroom full of students, is the longest hour, the longest hour of your life. The same thing with a magic show. Since I've been performing shows that are tightly scripted, you don't know the amounts of time that I have been in front of a very boring crowd, like a crowd that never claps, never laughs, and I'm like, I don't care, I am doing the whole show. And I'm like, oh my god, it's incredible. Before, I may have like an incredible crowd, and I was extremely tired. I couldn't even do all the tricks that I had in the case. But now, I have an extremely bad crowd, and I want to do everything. Yeah, because you work hard on it. And now you want to show it, you want to practice, you want to get mileage doing that act. So that's another positive thing. Great, great, great positive point. And more things. Yeah, okay, the last thing that I have to tell you is basically that if you would like, I can show you in some videos, because one video is not going to be enough. In some videos I can show you the tricks that I have currently, because this may change, the tricks that I have currently in these 5 shows, right? I would love to show you, even explain a little bit to you why I connect those tricks together in those specific shows. And yes, I hope that you find this information useful. This is the way that I structure my magic. This is the way that I make sure that all my ideas and all of the magic that I learn from other magicians get the place they deserve in my shows. So I would love to know your thoughts. Please comment, subscribe, all of that junk, and I see you in the near future. Bye!